The Mender's art. The shop smelled of ozone, sawdust, and old tea. It was a cluttered, comforting space where the air hummed with the low-frequency vibration of 100 minor enchantments keeping clocks ticking and teapots warm. Silas, a man whose hair was the color of iron filings and whose face was etched with the lines of deep concentration, sat at his workbench. In his hands, he held the delicate gear assembly of a clockwork nightingale. "Left a bit, Barnaby," Silas murmured. On the workbench, an ancient tabby cat chuffed. Barnaby was a testament to Silas's craft. Years ago, a stray dog had nearly ended the cat's life. Now Barnaby walked with a rhythmic thump-pad, thump-pad. His right front leg was crafted from polished cherry wood, articulated with silver joints that moved as smoothly as bone and sinew. One of his eyes, lost in the same fight, was now a sphere of mahogany with a rune-carved emerald pupil that dilated in the dark. Barnaby nudged the screwdriver closer with his wooden paw. "Thank you," Silas said, scratching the cat behind the ears. The bell above the door chimed, not the sharp ring of a shop bell, but the soft, melodic toll of a crystal wind chime. Silas looked up, adjusting his magnifying spectacles. Standing in the doorway was a vision of tragedy and grace. She was elven, tall and willowy, wearing a cloak of moss-green velvet. But as she lowered her hood, Silas didn't gasp at her beauty, though she possessed it in spades. He looked with a craftsman's analytical sorrow at the ruins of it. The right side of her face was marred by a terrible burn, a violet and angry scar that pulled at her lip and eye, disrupting the perfect symmetry elves were famous for. Worse, her right sleeve was pinned up. The arm was gone just above the elbow. She hesitated, her hand gripping the doorframe. She looked at the clutter, then at Silas, and finally, her gaze rested on Barnaby. She stared at the cat's wooden leg, and then at his wooden eye. "Can I help you?" Silas asked, his voice gravelly but gentle. "I was told—" Her voice was like a broken flute, airy and pained. "I was told you fix things that others discard. Golems, machines." "I fix anything that wants to be fixed," Silas said, setting down the nightingale. She stepped forward, unpinning her empty sleeve. "Can you make me whole? Not flesh. I know you are not a biomancer. But wood? Like him?" She pointed a slender finger at Barnaby. Silas stood and walked around the counter. He didn't look away from her scars. He approached her as he would a damaged masterpiece, with reverence. "I can craft a limb, yes. Willow for flexibility, oak for strength. But it is not a simple purchase, my lady." "Alara," she whispered. "Alara, to make a limb that moves with your thought, that feels the warmth of a cup of tea or the texture of silk, that requires attunement. It is not just carpentry, it is soulful engineering. I would need you here, every day, for weeks. We have to map your nerves to the wood grain." Alara nodded, a spark of hope lighting her good eye. "I have nowhere else to be." And so, the routine began. Alara arrived every morning just as the sun hit the dusty window display. At first, she was stiff, sitting in the velvet armchair Silas provided, flinching whenever he brought the measuring calipers near her stump. But Silas was patient. He worked with a quiet, rhythmic focus that was hypnotic to watch. He carved the arm from a block of pale, enchanting ash wood. "Ash binds well to life energy," he explained one Tuesday, blowing sawdust from the intricate knuckles he was carving. Alara had brought a basket. "I brought scones," she said softly, "baker's bloom and honey." Silas looked up, surprised. "You didn't have to." "You look thin, Silas. You forget to eat when you work." They ate together, the silence between them shifting from awkward to companionable. Barnaby, usually wary of strangers, hopped into Alara's lap. She froze, terrified she might hurt him, but the old cat began to purr, a sound like a small engine. He rubbed his wooden eye against her hand. "He likes you," Silas noted, smiling. "He's usually a poor judge of character, seeing as he likes me, but I trust him with you." Alara smiled, and for the first time, the scar on her face didn't seem to pull so tight. Weeks turned into a month. The arm took shape. It was beautiful, sculpted to match the musculature of her left arm. etched with silver filigree that acted as magical conduits. Every day, Alara brought something: a pouch of rare tea, a scarf she had knitted, with difficulty, using one hand and a magical loom, a small potted plant that hummed when it rained. And every day they talked. Silas spoke of the loneliness of a long life spent fixing things that outlived their owners. Alara listened, her eyes soft. She spoke less, but she laughed more. She began to help around the shop, dusting the shelves, organizing the screws, feeding Barnaby. The shop, once merely a place of work, began to feel like a home. The day of the final fitting arrived. The autumn rain lashed against the windows, making the warm light inside feel like a sanctuary. "Ready?" Silas asked. He held the wooden arm. It glowed faintly with an inner amber light. Alara nodded, removing her shawl. She sat on the stool, her bare shoulder exposed. Silas attached the limb. It wasn't painful. It felt like dipping a cold hand into warm water. He tightened the silver cuffs and whispered the binding word, "Connect." Alara gasped. She looked down. The wooden fingers twitched. She rotated the wrist. She reached out and picked up a heavy iron cog from the bench. She could feel the cold metal through the wood. "It works," she whispered, tears spilling over her scarred cheek. It's beautiful." "It is," Silas said, but he wasn't looking at the arm. He was looking at her face. Alara set the cog down. She didn't stand up to leave. She ran her new wooden fingertips over the polished surface of the workbench. "The payment's already settled," Silas said, his voice unusually rough. "You've paid me in treats and company tenfold what the gold would be worth." "Silas," Alara said, her voice trembling, would you be interested in dinner? Somewhere other than this workbench?" Silas blinked, wiping his hands on his apron. "Me? Alara, look at me. I'm a dusty old human with grease under my fingernails. You are high elven." "I am a monster to them," she interrupted, the bitterness sharp in her voice. She stood up, the wooden arm hanging naturally by her side. "I didn't come here just for the arm, Silas." He looked at her, confused. "But you said—" "I lied," she confessed, stepping closer. Barnaby wound around her ankles, purring. "I walked past this shop a month ago. I saw you in the window. I saw you fixing this cat." She reached out with her new hand, the wooden fingers warm and steady, and cupped Silas's face. She traced the lines of age around his eyes. "I saw that you took something broken, something everyone else would have put down or thrown away, and you gave it value. You gave it life. My people, they value perfection. If a vase cracks, it is dust. If an elf is burned, she is fallen." She leaned in, her forehead resting against his. "I came because I am broken, Silas, and I saw that you loved broken things. I hoped that meant you could love me." Silas stayed very still, his heart hammering against his ribs like one of his repaired clocks. He reached up, his calloused human hands covering her wooden one and her flesh one. He didn't see the scars or the mismatched limbs. He saw the kindness that brought scones, the patience that won over a grumpy cat, and the bravery it took to ask for love. "My dear," Silas whispered, kissing the palm of her wooden hand. "The broken things are the only ones that know how to love back properly, because they know what it costs to be whole." Barnaby let out a loud, demanding meow, breaking the tension. Silas laughed, a rusty, joyous sound, and Alara smiled, whole and entirely unbroken.